think I forgot.
Good evening.
No.
Prueba a abrir el agua porque es bastante...
Es muy difícil de abrir.
Yes. Okay. Please take your seats. We need to start. Okay. So welcome everybody. My name is Despina Aphrodite Milaki, and I am the UN representative for the International Presentation Association. Together with my fellow organizers, the Sir Optimist International, the Sikh Human Rights Group, and the Baha'i International Community, I would like to welcome you for joining us here today in this room, and of course a warm welcome to those of us, of you watching us online. I'm deeply grateful to all our speakers who join us in this panel. I hope you all enjoy this discussion. In the interest of time, as we move forward, we won't offer full introductions to each of our wonderful speakers, but their bios will be shared afterwards, after this event, with a follow-up email. I wish to especially thank our co-sponsors, the Permanent Mission of Ireland to the UN Department of Economic and Social Affairs, and the NGO Committee for Social Development, who supported our efforts to host this event, focusing on community-led approaches that build social resilience and solidarity. A particularly timely and important theme. We all know that is also an emerging issue at the CSOC D63. Why is it important? It is important because multiple intersecting crises, including the COVID-19 pandemic, escalating conflicts, multidimensional inequalities, geopolitical tensions, and climate change spread rapidly, and they have become more complex and more frequent. In times of such overlapping crises, building resilience, better preparing people to respond, to adjust, to overcome these imminent challenges is critical. We must stand next to those people affected by such serious disruptions by enabling vulnerable individuals and communities to build sustainable livelihoods. When they face a wide range of crises, we foster social resilience and inclusion, and we promote social development that leaves no one behind. We all know that social resilience lies at the heart of the 2030 Agenda, and the Sustainable Development Goals play a critical role in addressing vulnerabilities and fostering inclusive development. By emphasizing equity, empowerment, and inclusivity, the 2030 Agenda ensures that resilience building is integral to achieving sustainable and equitable progress globally. 2025 marks the 30th anniversary of the 1995 Copenhagen Declaration, and as we look toward the World Social Summit, the second one, in November 2025, the vision of placing people and the planet at the center of development remains as timely and as relevant as ever. So I'll now give the floor to my colleague Maria Fornella Oninger, who will moderate the first part of this discussion, a discussion which will allow us to meet some individuals and communities and see how they respond to global crises, but also to hear from our esteemed speakers, from Ambassador Mython. He's not here yet. He's caught up with another commitment, but he will be here shortly. To hear also the UN Chief of the Division for Inclusive Sustainable Development, Ms. Wen-Yan Yang, and hear their perspective on the matter, bringing their valuable insight and input. I would be remiss, of course, if I didn't mention Queen Mother, an ambassador of goodwill to Africa. She will be delivering her own her closing remarks, but she will bring also her own experience and wisdom. So, Maria, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Despina, for framing the conversation that we're going to have here today so well. Welcome, everybody. It's good to see a full room. Time is of the essence, so I'm going to go straight to the first question. We'll try to keep a good rhythm as a conversation, but to facilitate that, we'll ask questions from the beginning. So I will start with Ms. Wen-Yan Yang, Chief of Global Dialogue for Development Branch Division for Inclusive Social Development, long title, Department, but important, Department of Economic and Social Affairs, which we familiarly call UNDESA. Wen-Yan, the more resilient a community is, the better prepared it will be to recover, as you know, from a crisis. What, in your experience, are the main elements of resilience? It's a three-pronged question. What does the UN recommend governments to do to strengthen resilience in their countries and communities? And finally, how does the UN support communities in building resilience and promoting the well-being of people and planet? The floor is yours.
Thank you, Despina. Thank you, Maria. Distinguished guests, dear friends, it's really a pleasure for me to be here to discuss with you a topic, a very important topic at a moment that's really important in our global efforts to advance social development. Indeed, you have mentioned that communities that are resilient are better to adapt to changes and better recover and support their people. So that indeed the topic of social resilience is what we call an emerging issue. I mean, it's discussed under the emerging issues in the this year's commission session. Of course, we know that it's not a new topic, right? And especially for those of you who work at the grassroots level to build resilience and support your communities, you know what that means and you know the importance. You don't need me to repeat and to preach to the converted, right? But in any case, I think indeed we are living in a time that's increasingly shaped by uncertainty, by change. As Despina mentioned, climate change, economic instability, and health crisis are presenting challenges of unprecedented frequency and complexity. Yet these challenges also present a profound opportunity for us to really focus our attention on building resilient communities. So it's a challenge and also an opportunity for us. Communities that can adapt to change, withstand shocks, and recover while ensuring long-term well-being and sustainable development are the kind of communities that we want. So to put it in a kind of as a working definition, so to speak, at its core, resilience is the ability to prevent, resist, adapt to, and recover from risks and crises. Today, I will share some key elements that build resilience and offer some recommendations, or the United Nations recommendations to build more resilient communities. First, building social resilience requires accelerating progress toward the 2030 agenda. And this, I think, I don't need to elaborate more. You know, if we achieve the sustainable development goals in the 2030 agenda, societies, communities, and people will be more resilient. If we reduce poverty, reduce inequality, we provide equitable access to education, health, and all the basic social services, and more importantly, or I should say in particular, access to social protection, we will have more resilient societies and more resilient communities. So I think that's kind of a big picture requirements, right? So we need to accelerate progress toward the 2030 agenda. Second, as I mentioned, more concretely, universal and comprehensive social protection systems are critical for safeguarding communities from falling into poverty during crisis. Let's just reflect on the COVID-19 pandemic, right? It highlighted the importance of robust safety nets. Countries, we know that from experience, countries with the stronger social protection systems stabilized households' income and supported economic recovery. But 3.8 billion people in today's world don't have any kind of social protection at all. That is, they get zero, nothing. I think this is something that's the hard reality that we need to keep in mind. If we have access to pension, or we have some kind of health insurance, we belong to the lucky half. There's another half of the world's people who don't have any social protection at all. Modernizing social protection systems to ensure universal, right-based, inclusive, and legally anchored coverage would expand access to essential supports and services. This modernization must prioritize the most vulnerable groups to ensure no one is left behind. So those 3 billion people are the ones that have to be the focus of our collective action. Third, effective governance plays a key role in reinforcing social resilience. Trust in government and inclusive decision-making processes are critical during crisis. Communities are more likely to rally behind responses when they trust that their governments act transparently and fairly and with their interest in mind. Inclusive decision-making, where all voices are heard, fosters social cohesion and ensures that policies reflect the needs of those most affected and those most in need. Governments can further enhance resilience by collaborating closely with the civil society organizations, community organizations that you represent. These organizations play a vital role as early warning systems, bridging divides between communities and amplifying citizen voices, which ensures accountability. Fourth, social resilience heavily depends on foresight, monitoring, and preparedness. Policymakers must use scenario-based planning to proactively prepare for emerging threats and take action before the crisis strike. Crises often offer early warning signs, whether through environmental changes, financial instability, or health indicators. So investing in early warning system linked to social protection programs enables rapid targeted responses to deal with the immediate shocks, such as economic downturns or natural disasters or pandemics. Finally, sustainable financing is essential for building resilience. Adequate funding for education, healthcare, social protection, and disaster preparedness ensures that these systems remain strong and ready to respond. However, in low-income countries, spending on social protection averages just 0.8% of GDP. That's less than 1% of GDP. And this morning we heard that there need to be more spending on social protection than on military spending. I think everybody would agree with that. And we hope that this can be one of the points for discussion and to be part of the outcome of the World Social Summit. We must mobilize domestic resources through improved tax collection, reduce inefficiencies, and pursue international collaboration on debt reforms to close the financing gap. I think domestic resource mobilization is a very important topic. And then, to improve tax collection and also improve the progressiveness of the tax systems is very important to mobilize domestic resource. And I also want to add that the role of communities in building, strengthening resilience is so important. While government policies are absolutely necessary, but I think it's the bottom up, the grassroots initiatives and actions. In other words, everything that you do that makes the big difference. I think resilience starts from the bottom up, start from community. So I cannot emphasize enough the importance and cannot express enough appreciation for what you do. So please continue doing your good work and knowing that the United Nations is on your side and behind you. We'll do what we can to support you. So finally, what the United Nations can do to support communities. In one way, I start with these kind of a global norm setting and global policy guidances that come from the United Nations. We mentioned the Second World Social Summit, so that agreements, commitments that will be made at the World Social Summit will be very important guidance to national governments. And you, as community leaders and community organizations, can hold your governments accountable to their commitments. So I think this is one important way that the United Nations can support communities. And of course, that's the kind of like the lofty ideal. But at the same time, I think in concrete ways, the United Nations also supports communities. So in one way that I know my department has capacity development activities that supports communities and supports to improve the capacity of grassroots organizations in doing what they do. So this is one kind of like the more on the ground support. And I also want to mention that the United Nations country team at the country level, to which soon I will join in June, is a strong It's the hands and the legs of the United Nations and the country level. So the country team is your ally to do what you do, and do reach out to the UN country team, and they do provide support, both technical and sometimes even financial support to community initiatives. And they definitely are a platform, a forum for community involvement. So I will stop here, and I just, before I end, I must thank the NGO committee and the Permanent Mission of Ireland for leading the organization of this event, and I look forward to hearing your stories and your voices. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and thank you also for announcing that you're leaving DESA and going to join a country team, and I think that you will do an excellent job there because you have your eyes on resilience, you have your eyes on the grassroots and the community building, not only lofty theories. So thank you very much for that, and also for stressing how trust in government is fundamental. So social inclusion needs to always be central. We must never forget that social inclusion is where progress really starts. Thank you. Okay. Since the ambassador is not with us yet, we're going to go ahead and introduce Mr. Richard Rogus, the Justice Contact of International Presentation Association. It's a video because we didn't have the Zoom capacity, so it's a very good video that I already saw. And he's in Queensland, Australia. So he's the Justice Contact for International Presentation Association. That's Despina's organization, situated in Queensland, Australia. And here is the video. You can play it. And he'll talk about their community-based.
Good evening. I am Richard Rogus, International Presentation Association Justice Contact for the Congregation of Presentation Sisters, Queensland, Australia. Thank you for the opportunity to speak at this event. Today I'll be speaking about 3 IPA projects in which I'm involved that are examples of community-led approaches to supporting people affected by gender-based violence, homelessness, and forced migration. Each of these projects demonstrates the value of charity, service, and partnership in providing basic needs in the short term while advocating for legislative, political, and societal reforms that address the structural causes of gender-based violence, homelessness, and forced migration. In Australia, the COVID-19 pandemic has had significant social and economic impacts. Socially, lockdowns contributed not only to an increase in various forms of gender-based violence, but also a greater awareness of the issue that led to an increase in the number of women seeking support. In addition, the winding back of face-to-face social support services during the lockdowns exacerbated the experience of social isolation for vulnerable people, especially the homeless and the elderly. Economically, the COVID-19 recession has led to an increase in inflation that here in Australia has fueled a cost of living and housing affordability crises. This has forced more people into homelessness, especially women and Indigenous peoples. In responding to the signs of the times at a grassroots level here in Queensland, the IPA has partnered with government agencies, religious congregations, and not-for-profit organisations in order to address the injustice of social disadvantage. Our projects are guided by the principles of Catholic social teaching, specifically human dignity, the preferential option for the poor, subsidiarity, and solidarity. We believe that these projects contribute practically to advancing the Sustainable Development Goals, gender equality, reduced inequalities, and sustainable cities and communities. Firstly, the DV Care Pack project is a response to the issue of gender-based violence. In Australia currently, 2 women per week are killed by their partner. The DV Care Pack project is a partnership with the Queensland Police Service's Vulnerable Persons Unit with funding from Catholic Religious of Queensland. This funding allows us to provide 80 bags of toiletry supplies that are given to women and children forced to leave their homes due to gender-based violence. Other items available include food items, nappies, clothing, and fuel vouchers. This is a practical, very simple community response at a time of crisis in a person's life that meets a need that's not being currently funded by government. Secondly, Rosie's Friends on the Street is a Queensland-based charity that operates street vans that provide a point of connection for people experiencing homelessness and social isolation. In Queensland, as throughout Australia, the cost of living and housing affordability crisis has led to an increase in people sleeping rough on the streets and seeking low-cost housing. The Rosie Street Outreach that operates every day of the year provides tea and coffee, small snacks, toiletries and blankets to people in need, and it's staffed by volunteers. Most importantly, it provides a place of connection where people are known by name, are listened to, and can be registered with other support agencies that can deliver healthcare, short-term housing, and other forms of social support. Finally, Multicultural Australia's Work and Welcome program provides short-term employment of approximately 10 to 12 weeks to refugees and asylum seekers in order to give them work experience in an Australian workplace. The program currently operates in 40 Queensland government bodies, businesses, and schools, including schools previously owned and operated by the Presentation Sisters. Each placement is funded through the voluntary payroll deductions of employees. Such a program not only provides work experience and an income to newly arrived migrants, but it challenges stereotypes and prejudices and helps to build solidarity. I would like to conclude with a quotation from Pope Francis's encyclical Fratelli Tutti, published in 2020. While the Pope is addressing the issue of migration and our responses to it, I think it offers a foundation for any community-led response to social injustice. So the Pope says, "We are obliged to respect the right of all individuals to find a place that meets their basic needs and those of their families, and where they can find personal fulfillment. Our response to the arrival of migrating persons can be summarised by 4 words: welcome, protect, promote, and integrate. For it is not a case of implementing welfare programs from the top down, but rather of undertaking a journey together through these 4 actions in order to build cities and countries that, while preserving their respective cultural and religious identity, are open to differences and know how to promote them in the spirit of human fraternity." Thank you.
We thank Richard Rogos and International Presentation Association for such an incredible program that delivers to the homeless, the victims of domestic violence, the immigrants, but also more important than just delivering goods, as he said, is that they make them feel included. They establish dialogue. That's for basic social inclusion. That's what we mean by social inclusion and solidarity. So very good, and we appreciate it very much. And now, His Excellency, Mr. Fergal Mythen is here with us, Ambassador and Permanent Representative of Ireland to the United Nations. And we welcome you, and we go straight to the first question. Ireland has a tradition of fostering a strong civil society. In fact, it's among the OECD countries allocating the highest proportion of bilateral aid to civil society. So what we'd like to ask you is, in your experience, how does community-based solidarity benefit the whole of society, and how does it complement or rather contribute to the government's assistance efforts? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is that on? Just hello, everyone. I love to see a crowded room. And I do apologise for arriving late. I had to give our national statement at the formal plenary session, so I apologise for that. And I'm sorry I missed some of the contributions. And I just want to thank you all, the organisers, for this, all the great organisations involved, and also UNDESA and the NGO committee for convening this. I think. Thinking on this topic, and it's a very broad topic, but, ultimately, when we think of issues, global issues, they can seem overwhelming. You talk about millions of dollars, and you talk millions of people in difficulty, and it can seem so daunting and so overwhelming that it can be easy to give up and say there's nothing we can do. But actually, if you bring it down to community level, not just national level, but community level, then suddenly it becomes like, it can seem more manageable. It can seem more achievable to actually tackle those issues and those challenges at that local level. And then if you scale it up to regional level, work with national governments and then global, and just I think it's a much easier approach. I remember talking to our Prime Minister some years back, and he was worried about the global crisis narrative. In a sense, it's so big and so daunting and so overwhelming that it kind of encourages people just to give up and say there's nothing I can do. But actually, you bring it back down to that community level. So that's very, very important. I suppose for us, what is the role of civil society? And I think I saw this in my own career. I joined our public service in Ireland in 1990, so that ages me. And at that stage, we really hadn't gone very far along the way of opening the doors of the administration, the civil service to voices coming from the community, from civil society, NGOs. And it was during that decade that I saw, certainly in my own career, the opening of the doors, the breaking down of the barriers and the walls, to listening to outside voices, community voices, people's voices, and to making a real difference, and to developing partnerships. Now, along the way, that partnership has waxed and waned. Sometimes it's stronger, sometimes it's less strong. It took a knock during our financial crisis. But I think it's very hardwired into, certainly to most political representatives in our parliament and to most civil servants, the value of working with civil society, of knowing that we're not the font of all wisdom, of all knowledge, of all answers, because we're certainly not, and that actually working together in partnership, in consultation, in cooperation, can make meaningful difference at every level. And I suppose that's why we also support that in our aid programme and in our approaches to building partnerships with countries, particularly in the global south, but also seeing the role of civil society, not just government to government, because we don't have all the answers. I think it's pretty clear governments don't have all the answers. So it's very rich. It's challenging, So I think it's really important that the role of civil society is not to be co-opted as cheerleaders for a particular government of the day or for a particular public policy approach. It has to be challenging, and on occasion, if it's really to be effective, it has to be painful and it has to hurt and it has to be speaking truth to power. Just as government can kick back and say, well, hold on a moment, you're presenting these options, these solutions. Have you tested these? Have you done the homework? So there has to be a certain edge to it. I think that's important. And I think that's really, really important. And the role of civil society, to be really impactful, has to have that edge, to be critical, fair, but critical, and not to be co-opted by the system. I think that's something that's very important, both domestically and in our work abroad. So I mean that's a very broad brush, but I think the big point is, listen to people, listen to communities. Ireland is not a big country. Where the island is 7 million in the Irish Republic. We're 5 million. We fit into a portion of New York State. But even there, it can be hard to get central government to really implement and to really listen and to get into that partnership, particularly when you get away from the capital city and the bigger cities. And that's where the challenge is. So that's why I think we do believe in that sense of partnership. And I think if you look at our journey, economic, social, culture over the last 50 years, we're in a good place now, and I think a part of that has been partnership, and opening doors, breaking down the walls to communities and to civil society. It's part of it. It's not the entire story. It's pretty deep, and it doesn't mean we've got everything right. We've a very big. It's just been recorded. We have a big housing challenge. That's no secret. We have challenges in many sectors. So it's not as if I'm here to say Ireland's getting everything right, but I think that really fruitful, challenging relationship has been part of our story over the last 50 years, and I think it's been a very positive one. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for highlighting the job of community-based initiatives. And I like that we can be critical of governments. I really enjoy that. And if you listen and if there's partnership, then we can build together. That's very good. And also that the global crisis is daunting, and so take step by step, take community by community, and that gives us hope also that our work will be heard and we'll get somewhere. Thank you. Next, I'm going to introduce Dr. Balbinder Bogle, who I just met, had the pleasure of meeting, professor of religious studies at Hofstra University. And I do have a question for you, and it's a long question. Langar, as we understand it, is the practice rooted in equality and dignity for all, regardless of social status, religion, or background. How has this tradition contributed to fostering social solidarity beyond the Sikh communities?
Thank you so much. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you to the organizers, distinguished guests, and audience. The simple answer is by institutionalizing compassionate action over norms and identity. A vision of radical equality arises, expressed in the Gurdwara and its Langar Hall, a place for social and spiritual solidarity and sustenance. Sikhs are well known for distributing the Guru's Langar all around the world, providing essential goods to millions, from food to blankets, water bottles to tents, medicine to sandbags, cattle feed to raft services, libraries to oxygen beds. Let's unpack a little why action over identity matters so much. The often noted superiority of Europeans, quote, a single shelf of a good European library was worth the whole native literature of India and Arabia. That was by Thomas Macaulay on his 1835 minute on education, is matched by the indigenous Vedic caste arrogance that espouse we Aryans are better than those servants or slaves, the dasas. Like the Buddhists, the Guru Sikh tradition opposed any human stratification based on purity, rejecting divine languages and tutelary inheritance of caste, for the vernaculars and merit-based value. The Guru Granth Sahib, the Sikh scripture, is literally the revelation of the excluded people, including and equating high and low caste, Brahmins with dasas. Contra the Aryan, the Gurus use Das as their own name. Guru Amar Das, Guru Ram Das, Gobind Das, relating to the people in their language, traveling to their sacred centers, valuing the simple and modest hospitality of humble servants over the lavish banquets of prideful kings, valuing simple, honest life, remembering the one in all, engaging in honest labor, and sharing one's earnings with those in need. This is how Sikhs foster social solidarity with non-Sikhs. Guru Amar Das answers the complaint of a Brahmin for his use of impure vernacular Punjabi. Rather than the pure Sanskrit by making an analogy, the Guru says, Sanskrit is like a deep but inaccessible well, providing a limited amount of water to a select few to irrigate adjacent lands. However, Punjabi is like rainwater, ever fresh, freely available to all, high or low, and without limit can irrigate the whole land. Spiritual wisdom should be for all in common languages, not restricted to an elite caste and their divine language. The mediated and exclusive verticality of well water contrasts sharply with the unmediated and inclusive horizontality of the rainwater. On approaching Multan, in another story, the saints of the village approached Guru Nanak, the founder of the Sikh tradition, at the border of the village, presenting him with a bowl full of milk, a bowl full to the brim with milk. Grasping immediately the symbolism, bowl is the village, milk represents the saints in the village, and it's full. Guru Nanak understood their intent. No room for yet another saint who also lived off alms. How does Guru Nanak respond? He neither spills the false milk nor obeys their not-so-secret motives, but places a jasmine flower afloat atop the milk without spilling a drop, indicating there is always room for the fragrance of truth. Given that there is no calculus for the Guru's word, its fragrance allows it to be a potential hidden in all words, languages, and traditions. Yet no one tradition can monopolize it, revealing an epistemic humility. This fragrance creates a bridge of resonance across traditions and peoples that enables social solidarity to gain a new foundation. Truth as a fragrance across traditions and the pragmatism of action over identity introduce a new sociality that displaces the old sociality and sovereignty of the master-slave, friend-enemy relation, with a new egalitarian comparativity of a friend-friend sovereignty. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Action over identity and the fragrance of truth. Those are just beautiful, beautiful phrases that I'll try to keep with me forever. We really thank you for your great reflection. And we are now ready to move on, right? We are doing fine with time?
Yes.
So we can move on to the next, is Ivan? Yeah. So now my co-moderator, Ivan, is going to take over the second part of this conversation.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. Now we'll have the intervention of Maria, who is Maria and Sonia, Sonia, Director of Programs and Innovation of socio-economic International, and also Alicia Rivarola, which is the school principal of that created with the program of socio-optimist International. So if they will intervene by video because.
Hola a todos, yo soy Sonia Sanabria, directora del Centro Educativo Maracaibo.
Hi everyone, I'm Alicia Rivarola. I am the Director of Programs and Innovation at the Moises Bertoni Foundation. I'm here with Sonia, that is the coordinator of the socio-optimist projects that I will show you in this presentation that will be in English, but Sonia will stay with me because she's the one in charge of all this magic that is happening with the project that we will show you today. First of all, we would like to show you a little bit more about where this project is happening. The Maracaibo Forest Reserve is administrated for the foundation and is almost 6 times bigger than Asunción, that is our capital. It's in the Department of Canindeyú. And inside the reserve, we have a program for education for sustainable development. And our principal project beside this program is a school only for girls in the last 3 years of school, of high school, doing a technique. And we have more than 400 graduating students already. And one of the principal things that this project helped us was to use sport as a tool for the well-being and development and the training of these young environmental leaders that live in the reserve and around the reserve. How we do that? We do it with objectives like build a sports center at the Maracaibo Educational Center to improve all the physical activities that they have. As you can imagine, they have a lot of outdoors activities, but they need a specific lands to do a specific sport. So with this project, we have the possibility to build this center. As you can see, you can play here volleyball, soccer, basket, a lot of sports. But we know that that wasn't enough, and it was to be like really important for the community. So I'm really happy to share that without any planification, we have big support for the community from teachers, other students, and the parents to do a different kind of crowdfunding to access to more money to build a big center, and also to have all the activities that have to continue with the center, right? This, for example, was a rifa, that is something that you have a goal that you have to reach. So we do it with the communities and with the teachers, and this for us was incredible because it was part of the parents' idea, it was not our idea. And then we have all the equipment that you need, obviously, for the sports. This was really interesting for us because the girls choose the colors representing from nature. So this gives her distinguished from other teams from other school. So we have we can provide them different practice and different workshops about how you can be in sport for a career, how you have to be healthy in your nutrition to continue to have the energy to do all these kind of sports. We have also a workshop about gender violence and all the things that are happening around when you are practicing a sport. It's not only to have the land to do it. You also need to know about the rules, about the values. So we continue doing this with the different kind of training outside and inside the classroom with different kind of professionals to do it. And the principal achieve for us is that now that we have a place to practice and the equipment to do it, we can participate in the local games for volleyball and for soccer principal. And we are really happy to announce that in our first time doing it, we already won the first place. And our girls are really, really excited to continue participating and really excited about practicing, about eating well, about having all these good values that the sports can give you. We also organize a camp for camping for more than one actually for the young people that live around the reserve. So this is a way that our girls can share what they're learning and what they're doing inside the reserve with the community. And obviously, we give a lot of workshop also to the community, not only to our girls, about physical education and the importance of these kind of things. We do it outside the classroom and inside the classroom. And this is a good opportunity also to open the reserve and to open the school for all the community and not only for the girls that are already living and learning them. And something that is something that we are trying to explore more now, and this project help us with the basic thing is we have the opportunity to purchase some STEM kit to explore about how other things we can do in the sport area. And we are really, really thank you for this opportunity to share what we're doing. And we are open to have like more ideas. If you have any more questions, we'll give you here the ways you can contact us. And we'll super happy to hear about what are the ideas we can find and how we can make this project bigger than already is for us. Thank you all for your attention.
Since this is my organization, I'd like to add a couple of words that I'm not sure because the sound was not very good. This happens in the rainforest in Paraguay. This is a school that started in a natural reserve called Fundación Moisés Bertoni. And the interesting thing is they had a lot of teenage pregnancy or people or girls that left the school, low self-esteem, including not such good health. So they wanted a project for their well-being and their new image, their self-esteem. And so it started with a grant from Soroptimist International, but what is relevant to us here today is the way this developed, this society broke out of they broke out of their isolation. They are called hijas del bosque, which in Spanish means daughters of the rainforest. That's the name of the program in the school. And they found solidarity in their own families and neighbors. And so the project keeps on growing, and Soroptimist hasn't been asked for another grant, and we see it growing and flourishing, and it's really very emotional to me every time I see it grow. Thank you. Sorry.
After having watched or after having heard Sonia and Alicia showing us the importance of building resilience and social cohesion, not only facing not only confronting the many challenges that we may have in our daily life, but also having fun, practicing some sport, or knowing how to respect the nature. I'll give the floor to Carlos Rodriguez, City Harvest Chief Policy and Operations Officer. He oversees City Harvest daily food rescue and deliver operations, community and programming and policy advocacy efforts. Carlos, you have.
Thank you, Ivan. So City Harvest is New York's first and largest food rescue organization, and we rescue high-quality, nutritious food that would otherwise go to waste and deliver it for free to our soup kitchens and food pantries across the 5 boroughs in New York City. This year, we're positioned to rescue and deliver more than 81 million pounds of food, or about 36.7 million kilograms of food, mostly fresh fruits and vegetables for our neighbors experiencing food insecurity. And food insecurity is when a family or an individual does not know whether they'll have access to the food they need to live an active and healthy lifestyle. It is a precursor of actually being hungry and going without food. We do this because 50% of working-age households in New York City are struggling to make ends meet. That includes 1 in 4 children who don't always know where their next meal is coming from. According to a recent report from Robin Hood and Columbia University, the majority of New Yorkers who are visiting food pantries have jobs, and in fact, sometimes have 2 or 3 jobs in New York City. New York City is in the midst of an affordability crisis. Costs for essentials like childcare and rent are so high that more and more New Yorkers need to turn to food pantries as a means to financial management, not just as a means of last resort. If they can save money on food by visiting a food pantry, that helps them stretch their budget to much further pay medical bills or make rent that month. In addition, by doing so and accessing fresh fruits and vegetables, it can help perhaps alleviate or get in front of possible health consequences down the road. The irony is that there's enough food and resources to solve this. Definitely here in New York City, but as my panelists say, definitely across the globe as well. So the issue really is one of access. People want a good. There's the means to get it. Sometimes it feels I'm talking more about an economic failure or market failure than just the simple act of rescuing food. So there are enough resources to solve the problem. There's enough nutritious, high-quality food to feed our neighbors, even in New York City where we lack farms. The truth is that our approach and our service and our mission is in the backdrop of abundance, the abundance that you see all around us, not just in Manhattan, but across the city. So that's why we're on the road, not just to tell this story, but to rescue food every day, from farms outside of the region to wholesalers, supermarkets, and other food donors to make sure that it gets into the hands of those that need it. And by doing so, we're actually addressing not just food access for our neighbors, but also sustainability. By getting 81 million pounds of food, or 36.7 million kilograms of food into the hands of our neighbors, as opposed to potentially letting it go to waste, where our rescues actually will prevent the equivalent of more than 24 million kilograms of carbon dioxide from entering the atmosphere. So our approach of food rescue is actually a direct link, or serves rather as a direct link between human health and environmental health. The backdrop of abundance, the scarcity of families and children to make ends meet, can actually be combined to create perhaps two goods and deal with, as I heard today, the multitude of the multidimensional disparities that actually exist across our society. So when we are getting fresh fruits and vegetables to families to nourish their bodies, rather than letting it go to waste and emit carbon dioxide and waste, and waste all the resources, by some estimates, as much as 2 GDP points of the U.S. economy is wasted. A tremendous economic failure and waste in and of itself. We are also simultaneously improving the health of New Yorkers and our environment. We need both to be healthy in order to increase the resiliency of community. As we all can relate to, humbly relate to, on an empty stomach, much of a day's work is not achieved. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. And yes, as you underlined, the size of the consumption-grade food that is thrown away, at least in Western countries, is kind of a sin. No, it's a very, very unfortunate event. I don't know. If
okay, we can open the floor now. We can open the floor now for questions. If you would like to share any question you may have or any comment for our esteemed speakers, you are more than welcome to do so. Please go ahead and raise your hand, and I'll give you the floor. Yes, please, in the back.
Hello, my name is Lizo. I'm the representative of Washington University on the invitation of International Association of School of Social Work. I have a question for Ms. Yang, and you talked a lot about the great work that DESA does, and I just want to know what are the effective communication ways you can get the excellent work and the support you guys offer to the people actually on the ground, because I think there's a lot of the messages are not down there. So if you can share what are the ways people can know, like for example, I don't even know how to pass down the offers, the great work you guys are doing, and where can I find this relevant information and communicate out? Thank you.
We will accept one more question for our speakers. From the audience? Yes, please.
I think most everyone here can agree that grassroots community organizing is immensely important on a number of different levels, both for achieving immense societal change to helping your neighbor calm down or relax after a long, hard day at work. It's from the very bottom to the very top. And one of the things you mentioned, Ms. Young, in the beginning of the importance of building resilience is the importance of celebrating progress. Well, I'm wondering how can grassroots communities continue to maintain resilience and thereby trust in the government in circumstances where state institutions don't allow for communities to achieve progress through traditional means such as community building or nonviolent civil disobedience and other things like that.
Thank you. I think we need to give Wen-Yang the time to respond to those two, and then we can, accept some more if time allows us. Wen-Yang, you have the floor. Thank you.
Myself off. Thank you both for your excellent questions. I need time to reflect, but in any case, the first question, I think that the work DESA does, I see it in terms of our function. we build bridges. First, we connect the kind of, you are from university, academic research community. We take the kind of frontier research from academic university think tanks to the United Nations to make it relevant for member states in their discussion. I see the ambassador nodding. To make it relevant and accessible to member states in their deliberations. This is one big part of our work. In that sense, our work is kind of inward, right? It's not so much outward, telling the rest of the world what we are doing, the great job we are doing. So that's kind of like, I see it like fundamentally is not our, I should say traditionally it's not our role, our spirit to advertise to the world what we are doing. That's one point. And the other is that we also build bridge between what member states agree in the forum of the United Nations to what could happen at the national level and at the community level. That's the part of our work that's kind of more outward looking. And I hear you. Obviously, apparently, we don't do enough outreach to communicate that work that we do. Having said that, we can improve our outreach and communication. And also, I can share with you that for the work, lots of the work we do, especially the work we do support member states in the intergovernmental deliberations, information is available on the UN website, and you can find the reports, and we have prepared. It's not written as UN DESA reports. It's reports of the Secretary General. We are nameless heroes, if I may say so. The reports they appear as the UN Secretary General's report, not DESA. So if you saw some interesting reports from the issued under Secretary General's report on XYZ, some of them are written by DESA. And of course, in this day of information and internet and lots of ways of communication, I think that it's not just DESA. I think the United Nations as a whole, we have a lot to learn and to do to really communicate to the world and to connect with the people. And I take that as a very constructive point and for our work. And your points, I agree with what you said. I think that I think as Ambassador Meitzen said, that partnership is so important, right? Governments can and should do lots of things, but governments cannot do everything, and governments don't always have the answers. And I think partnership is so important. And I understand that different countries have different systems and different ways of engaging with civil society, but that's something that I think that you probably know better than I do, how to constructively engage and find the space and expand your space in the places where you work. But I always believe that good work would speak for itself. And when you have a result, you can show the impact of your work. I think that's the most powerful kind of argument for or asking for space and engagement in that respect. Thank you.
The ambassador would like to react.
Thank you, Wen-Yang, especially. No, that's fine. Especially that we didn't give you the time to reflect with those two questions, but you're always so sincere and kind. And yes, UN DESA is doing an amazing work, and sometimes you don't get the credit that you deserve, but we are really grateful for being here and share with us your perspective on the matter. Thank you again. I will give the floor now to the ambassador. He wants to comment on the questions.
Thanks very much. Yeah, just a few thoughts really. I suppose in my remarks I did focus on our own national experience, communities, civil society, national government, and I kind of left out another big piece, which is engaging with multilateralism in the international system, UN, ILO. That's a very important part of the piece. So it's in a perfect world, it's a virtuous circle of connectedness and implementation. Feeding up from the ground up to national governments, up to the UN, and then back down again, implementing SDGs, and then coming here and sharing experience. And that's an ideal world. We don't live in an ideal world, but that's the model. And I think it's why, my favourite times of the year at the UN are weeks like this, CSOC-D, CSW, when we do break down the walls of the UN, and all of you come in here with your ideas, and very often it's the connectedness you have with each other from across the globe and the lessons sharing you do, outside these rooms. That's really, really impactful. But it's very important for us as member states to hear you here. It's very important for the UN system, and I agree with previous speaker about the role of UN-DESA. So that's the perfect world where we're connecting and we're feeding off each other and we're learning, at community level, at national level, and then at the international level. And for Ireland, the multilateral system is so important. The first thing we did when we got our independence was join the ILO and the League of Nations. When that didn't work, we joined the UN. And we know it's not perfect because the world isn't perfect and member states aren't perfect, but we believe in it so much. It's in our interests and our values. So it's for us, it's making the community level work, making the engagement with our communities work, but also that multinational engagement. It's all so important. And look, I think this is a challenging time globally. It's a challenging time for civil society. It's a challenging time for all of us. But none of this was ever easy. Okay, like I look at growing up, my mother, my grandmother, growing up as women in Ireland, and that wasn't easy. And the rights that my daughters have now were not just given; they were demanded, they were worked for, they were battled for, and it's the same in every society. These things are not given. So finding the space for your voice, for your experience, you have to keep on working at it. And there's going to be setbacks. There's going to be difficult days. And if things maybe are more difficult in the Western world than they were before, they've been difficult in other parts of the world. So let's keep on working together. We don't choose the age in which we get to live in. This is our age, this is our time. We are facing challenges. In a sporting sense, maybe we're playing against the wind here, but that's no excuse not to roll up the sleeves and keep on working and keep on engaging and keep on coming here and keep on sharing your stories with people from around the globe who are facing challenges just like you are facing, and keep on going. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. We really appreciate your comment. You mentioned the importance of multilateralism, but I have to share with the room that you were appointed as a co-facilitator of the revitalization of the CSW, which is very important, and you're always so humble that you don't.
Humility is very important.
Yeah. So this process of revitalization of the Commission on the Status of Women is really important, especially this year, marking the 30th anniversary from the Beijing Declaration. And your role, I think, it would be really, really important and impactful in that context. And thank you and congratulations. So I'll now invite Queen Mother, the ambassador, Goodwill Ambassador to Africa, to deliver her closing remarks and bring her wisdom and experience on this panel. Queen Mother.
First of all, in the spirit of my ancestors, I come before you, and it's been an honor to have known a woman, Mary Robinson, and Queen Mother been to Ireland because of Mary Robinson, a freedom fighter and a leader. I think for us to wrap this up from what I'm hearing, a concern we all must echo and be a part of outside of some of the critical times in our lives, and we're there right now, But as the ambassador and some of the speakers said to us in our conversation with each other, we must go on. And what I would like to lead for us in the conscience of New York City, and the world is sitting in New York City, the basic three: food, which was presented, shelter, which many of us are not enjoying in the frigid weather right now, no heat, no hot water, no electricity, in the heart of New York City. And the third is closed and sheltered from the elements of life. And Queen Mother will say to all of us, greed and control will never work. Of the resilience of a people from civil society will fight back, known or unknown. They're resilient. If you ever gone out to spend time, what we call the poor and the powerless, I would like to leave in our consciousness a reflection for all of us that are here. As Queen Mother has been here now for 56 years and reaching a ripe age of 83, which I give thanks every day, that just say to each other as we reflect on each other, sister, God, or that force greater than ourselves, still runs the world, and we run around in it. And keep that reflection as we reflect on women, Beijing plus 30, some of us was there. And as we reflect on DESA, for giving us an opportunity in the United Nations to be one of the stakeholders of the world, of our reflection of the world. For sustainable development goals, we all are a part of those goals. Beyond governments, beyond business, but at the least, civil society of inclusion of the United Nations. And I leave with all of us, just reflect as we leave here today of communicating with each other and in this dialogue that we've had with each other, just reflect our role in the development for all human beings. Reflect and give thanks at the time we're living today. Everything is in divine order, whether we understand it or not. It's a purpose and a reason, Ambassador, that we are here with each other. Everything is in divine order. I leave with us. Continue your work. Blessings upon you.
Thank you, Queen Mother. Thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing that unique perspective that you always do, and your own way of presenting things. Unfortunately, time does not allow us to accept any more questions, but we really appreciate all of you for being here. Special thanks to each one of our speakers. It has been a pleasure to have all of you today. We're extremely grateful for your comments, for your input, you all shared with us. And I think it has been a very rich and insightful discussion. A big thanks to all our online attendees. There are people watching us online. I would like to thank you all for your time. Wish you all a good evening or good evening, good night, good morning, depending on where people are watching us online. Thank you so much again, and looking forward to seeing you in future projects. Thank you.